Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. This is going to be my promo breakdown for the next episode of Season 8 of The Walking Dead, 8 of 10, which is going to be called The Lost and the Plunderers, which is of course a reference to the sign that's hanging outside the gates of the Alexandria Safe Zone. Before I get into this promo breakdown, my reaction to the last episode, 809, the mid-season premiere, was uploaded last night, so if you're interested, go check that out as well. So let's get right into this promo breakdown. On the next episode. So the promo basically starts with this shot of Rick looking at the letter that Carl wrote him. He's most likely going to be reading that letter in this episode. If you remember the end of the last episode, we ended with Rick sitting, and that's most likely where we're going to pick up in this episode. We might not see that entire scene completely because I do believe that that's a flash forward to the end of the war, because obviously if you pay attention, Rick is injured in that scene, and that scene is most likely the scene from the comics where at the end of the war Rick does get some sort of injury, so we might be seeing a remixed version of that. So that's most likely when that's going to take place. So this scene that we're going to see here might not be completely shown to us. We might get flashbacks and they might kind of keep going back to it, referring back to it, much like they've been doing already with Rick crying. So obviously Rick is looking at the letter that Carl wrote him. Now I hope that we get to hear some of that letter, if not the letter in its entirety in this episode. AMC's The Walking Dead. And as you can see here, that injury and blood on his mouth was not there in the last episode. So that gives us a hint that this is most likely a flash forward to the events in the future, probably after the war is done or near the end of the war. Maybe we should cut our losses here. We have a few scenes of Simon and Negan together. Simon says maybe we should cut our losses here. Now, that's very interesting because that scene could potentially be right after this scene, because in this scene, Negan is reading the message that Maggie wrote him. One of the saviors is a dead man inside of that box or that coffin, and as Maggie has written down, there are 38 more, and maybe that's what Simon is referring to. Maybe we should just kill all the Hilltop and cut our losses, because we do know Simon is a man of action. He doesn't want to keep people around. He doesn't see people as a resource. That could go a long way in playing into what we kind of speculated about Simon at the Oceanside killing all of the men in the past, and also him going to the junkyard and potentially killing all of the scavengers there. So it's going to be interesting to see whether these events are related in the matter that I just explained. But just seeing that whole conversation between Negan and Simon and kind of hearing that out and kind of getting that reveal maybe in the next episode, and also seeing Negan's reaction is going to be very interesting. We have this shot of Simon trying to keep the savior as a walker inside, and maybe they weren't prepared for what came out of there, and that's what Simon is reacting to here. We have this very, very interesting scene with Negan screaming at Simon saying, "You will do your job." Obviously, this has something to do with what he did at the junkyard community, or I'm assuming it does. And it's going to be very interesting to see, whether it's going to stop with Negan's just screaming or whether we're going to see something more there. We have these few shots of Rick standing by Carl's grave at the Alexandria Safe Zone. Rick is holding the silencer, the gun that Carl used to kill himself before he reanimated. Then we have this shot of Michonne looking very depressed, sad, which makes sense because she just witnessed Carl's death. But she's at the Alexandria Safe Zone and she is watching something in shock. Most likely she's watching the herd at Alexandria. And then obviously we have this shot of the Alexandria Safe Zone that's destroyed. There's walkers inside. Now these walkers are in there because the walls are down. If you remember, when they escaped, if you remember, there was a scene where they drove the cars out through the walls, and the walls basically came down after that. So the walkers are getting in from there. And obviously from that massive amount of gunfight and noise, they would be attracted to this area. We have this shot of Negan talking through the walkie-talkie to Rick, saying, so who's next? Now, he doesn't look very sad or happy. He just looks a little shocked, I would say. So perhaps, for whatever reason, Rick found this walkie and Negan has this walkie, and maybe Negan planted the walkie so he could talk to Rick, and maybe they begin talking and Rick reveals that Carl is dead, and maybe that's what leads to Negan saying, so who's next? Who else has to die for you to realize that this is not the right way to go? Or something along those lines. We have these few shots of Michonne and Rick at the Junkyard community, so we will definitely see the Junkyard community to some extent in this next episode. We will most likely see Simon go there as well, because we do see a couple shots of Simon at the Junkyard community as well. But this is most likely after Simon already went to the junkyard. So this is after most of the scavengers are dead by this time. We have this shot of Rick saying, you are. So, of course, answering Negan after he says, so who else has to die? But, you know, he looks very sad, very depressed, very shocked, but at the same time, motivated and at a point that he just doesn't care. He wants to kill Negan. So it's going to be interesting to see whether he actually follows through with that or not, especially after Carl's conversation with him. Then a few more shots of some more walkers at Alexandria. So the herd is at the Alexandria safe zone, and maybe it gets to a point where Rick and Michonne just give up and leave. We have these shots of Michonne trying to close the door to stop more walkers from trying to get in, and maybe they do block the wall that's already down. We have Enid talking to most likely Cindy, telling them the saviors are coming and they will wipe you out. Don't make the same mistake. So obviously warning them that the saviors are going to come sooner or later, and that she doesn't want them to make the same mistake that they did before when the saviors came and killed all of their men. We have this very interesting shot of Simon and Negan. Now this was in the main second half teaser as well, but what I didn't notice is that it looks like Simon's hands are tied. So does Simon get his hands tied by Negan because of what he did at the junkyard? So is Simon going to be punished for what he did? So will we be seeing Negan killing Simon? That's going to be very interesting. I hope they don't go that route, because I feel like Simon's death with a survivor killing him has more rewards for fans, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But it definitely looks like Simon's hands are tied here. And if you pay attention, you can see the walkie. So that's most likely the walkie-talkie Negan uses to talk to Rick. We have this shot of Simon at the junkyard community. Now, if you look, we have Jadis there as well, and obviously we have Simon looking the other way around, but some of the scavengers have weapons. So most likely something goes wrong and Simon ends up killing all of them, or most of them. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Then we have this shot of Simon face to face with Jadis. We have this interesting shot of Enid hugging Aaron. Now, I believe that there's two ways in which this could go. This could either be Enid's reaction to killing Netanya in the mid-season finale, 808, or it could be her reaction to Carl's death. But in either case, Aaron and Enid most likely develop some sort of bond through this experience. We have some more shots of Michonne and Rick killing a bunch of walkers. Then we have this shot of Michonne at the junkyard community. Now she's turning around and she's kind of shocked. So maybe at this point they see Jadis, and that's when, you know, they go to talk to her to see what happened. But at this point, it's very likely that most of the scavengers are already dead. We have this shot of Negan with Lucille. he is standing on the balcony at the sanctuary. Now he's looking at someone and he is not looking happy. He's angry. So it's going to be interesting to see what this is about as well. And then Rick ends with saying, I'm going to kill you through the walkie-talkie. So he's basically talking to Negan still. But he's said, I'm going to kill you so many times that at this point, if he doesn't do it, then he's going to look very weak. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how they kind of push everything towards where it needs to go in terms of what happens in the comics. But very excited for the next episode. But that's basically it for my promo breakdown. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.